Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the all-new Laura Mercier foundation, which is the Flawless Lumiere Radiance Perfecting Foundation. I feel like that is like such a long word for a foundation. So I've got a sample from Sephora. I wanted to get a sample first before I went out and bought the actual foundation. I always like to get a sample before I buy a foundation of anything, just to see how my face reacts to it, to see if I'm gonna break out and to prevent returns. So if I can get a sample first and try it out, then that is what I'm gonna do. So before we get started, if you like this video at the very end, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and that would just mean the world to me. I just love you guys, so thank you for being here. So Laura Mercier came out with this foundation, I believe in January, and it's a luminous foundation. So anytime a foundation comes out that has a luminosity, that has a dewy finish, I am all for trying those foundations out. As you know, if you've been following me for a little while, even on Instagram, you know that I love a dewy complexion, I love dewy makeup. I'm not into matte foundations, although I do find it's very pretty, but on myself, I like really dewiness just to make it look really healthy looking. I just think it looks really healthy looking when you have a little bit of a shine to it. Now, I don't mean like greasy shine or oily shine. I do have normal 2 combination skin, and I do get oily in the T-zone and in my chin. So sometimes I do have to put a little bit of powder in those areas depending on the foundation that I'm using. But most of the time I don't really have to powder. I don't mind the finish that I have at the very end of the day. So I just like the finish. I just like those finishes for foundations. So I went to Sephora and I got a sample of the Laura Mercier foundation. It comes in 30 different shades, and I ended up getting the shade 1W1 Ivory, which is for, it's fair, warm undertones. So I got a little sample from Sephora and I really do like it. Now I'm going to tell you the times that I did use it, and I'll give you some more info on that as well. But to get started, I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about the foundation. It's a medium to full coverage. Now definitely it's a medium to full coverage. I really do believe that. It's definitely buildable, but you don't want to go overboard with it, because I find that the more you put on your face, the more cakiness it kind of looks throughout the day. Now, I don't know if that's just on my skin. I've noticed that for the first 2 times that I used it, I noticed that it was a little bit too cakey, so I think I put too much on. But I wanted to give it a good go, so I wanted to go really heavy one day and then really light the next day. So you may not want to put too much on, just for that reason only. It's good for all skin types. Now, I think this would be especially good for people who have normal to dry skin. It definitely is hydrating, so if you do have super oily skin, you may not like this foundation unless you powder up in the areas that you need it, and then you're gonna have to powder up throughout the day. It's super hydrating, which I like, especially living here in Canada in the winter time. Like, it's so dry outside, so I really do enjoy that part of the foundation. But if you got oily skin, you may not like that. There's vitamin C in this as well, and silver ear mushroom extracts, which is to help with fine lines and wrinkles. So I'm not sure if that is for like a prevention. So I'm not sure if it's supposed to hide the fine lines or it's supposed to treat them as you use the foundation over time. I'm not sure about that. But it is fragrance free, it's alcohol free. Again, I am 1W1, which is Ivory. I believe I'll probably have to go up a shade come spring and summertime, but that shade was dead on to my color match. When I went into Sephora and they color matched me, it was like dead on. It matched perfectly with my neck, and that is actually very rare when I look for foundations. Usually I'm a little bit off, and I usually have to use 2 foundations to create a custom color. This foundation, like, it matched perfectly within the first time she color swatched me, and I was so impressed by that, because as you know, if you've seen my last, like a couple of my YouTube videos, I have to mix my IT Cosmetics CC cream. I have to have a fair and a light, and I have to mix it together to get a custom color for this time of the year. But then come the summer, I just use the light. So I was really pleased that I was able to get a color match right away with just using one foundation. So that was a huge bonus. So the first day that I used the foundation, I used it with a brush. Now I typically don't use a makeup brush, like a foundation brush. I just use my beauty blender, and I just love the way this applies foundation in general, but I wanted to give it a good test and try it with a brush and also try it with the beauty blender. And the first time I used it, like I said just a little bit previous ago, I did put too much on my face. Now it wasn't because of the brush. I really wanted to give it a good go and see how much coverage that it was going to give me so that I can give you really good first impression on it. So the first time I used it, I went really heavy with it, and it definitely covered all my redness, mostly all my blemishes that I have on my face, like previous acne marks, and it covered up really well. I actually didn't even have to go in with a concealer afterwards, which I usually have to do. I have to spot conceal some areas on my face, so I didn't have to do that. The way the brush applied the foundation was nice, but I found it to be a little bit streaky. I had to go in afterwards with the beauty blender to kind of like blend it all out and smooth everything out. So I didn't like the way the brush applied the foundation. I don't know if it's the brush I was using or I'm just used to using the beauty blender, but I didn't like applying this foundation with the brush. So throughout the day when I was checking in on my face, I did not put a primer on my face for the very first time. I wanted to see what it would be like with just a moisturizer and a sunscreen on, and throughout the day it definitely started to look cakey. It started to slip and slide on my face and my oily spots on my T-zone and my chin, and it just did not look good. I actually couldn't wait to go home and take off my makeup. I just thought it looked horrible on my face, and I was pretty disappointed, but get too discouraged. I wanted to give it a good try and try it for a few days using different techniques and products. So the next day that I used it, I used a sunscreen as well, but then I put a lighter application on. So still I did not use a primer. I just did my moisturizer and my sunscreen with the foundation on top, applied it with the brush as well. I wanted to see what that would be like using a little lighter technique than the heavier technique from the day before. And again, it still applied streaky. Doing it lighter was a nicer coverage, I found, because I do like to see some of my skin come through my foundation. I don't like to have a super heavy makeup look on my face. I do like to still see my freckles come through and just look more natural. So if I didn't use the brush, I think I would have liked it better on that day. It did last a little bit longer than the day before when I had put on a heavier application, but again, it still kind of slipped and slid on my face, of the T-zone and my chin, and when I checked in the day, it just wasn't sitting well on my face. It just wasn't looking the best, but it definitely looked better than the day before. On the third day, I did the application with the beauty blender, and what a friggin' difference putting the foundation on with the beauty blender. I just think it went on so much better, so much nicer. It was more even, it was smooth, and the application with the beauty blender was just it. Like, that was what I was missing. So when I applied it the third day with the beauty blender, I also tried applying it with the blurring primer. Now, if you haven't seen my video on this Cover FX new blurring primer, you have to check it out because this product is absolutely amazing, especially the next product that I'm about to show you as well. I applied the blurring primer just to the areas where my pores are more accentuated. So here, my chin, and I also did underneath my eyes to blur out those fine lines that I have under my eyes. And before I put the blurring primer on, I did put my sunscreen on, and then I used the beauty blender to apply it all over my face, and it went on so beautifully. I can't even tell you. It was amazing. So definitely, if you're gonna try this out for the first time, try it out with the beauty blender first, or a sponge if you have one at home, and see how that works with you first before using your brush, because I just found that this went on so much nicer. and I did a light application as well, so that I could still see some of my skin come through, but the foundation definitely hid all of my redness and a lot of my blemishes as well. I did have to go in a little bit with my concealer just to spot conceal some of the areas that it just wasn't covering, but I wasn't upset about that. I don't mind doing that, and if I can get a lighter application and make it look natural, then I am all for that. When I checked in during the day, it was sitting so nice. It lasted a lot longer. I didn't have my makeup on for 15 hours that day, but I probably did have it on for about 12 hours. And by the end of the night, I was definitely shiny, but it wasn't a terrible shine like, oh my god, like you look like a grease ball. Like, it didn't look like that whatsoever. It looked healthy. It looked really, really good. But there is a little bit of a pearlescent in it, which gives that luminosity. So you're not gonna look glittery, you're not gonna look like super pixie or anything like that, but it really is a natural, beautiful finish. Okay, and then on the final day, the 4th day, I ended up going in with my moisturizer again, my sunscreen always, and then I went in with the Cover FX Gripping Primer. I did not use the blurring primer with this. I wanted to try each primer out by itself to see how it would work. So I just put this primer on all over the face. Make sure that you check out my Cover FX video on how to apply this. It is pretty tacky and sticky, which is why the gripping name came about. And it's a very interesting product. You'll just have to check out that video. So I will link it below for you. But you have to pat it into your face, and you'll know why when you see my video. So I used this, I patted it all over my face, I let it sit for about 30 seconds before I ended up putting the Laura Mercier foundation on. Again, I used the Beauty Blender, of course, and let me just tell you that it went on even better than the blurring primer. Now you have to remember that this is a gripping primer, so your foundation, your makeup is supposed to grip and stick to your makeup, and it does exactly that. Your makeup just goes right to the gripping primer and just sticks there for the whole entire day. So when I used this one on the 4th day, my makeup literally lasted all day. I kept checking in from time to time just to see if my makeup was slipping and sliding. It definitely was not, and on this day I had the foundation on for the full 15 hours to give it a really good test, and by the time that 15-hour mark came around at nighttime, I looked in the mirror, and of course I was a little bit shiny, but it was nothing terrible, and not one spot on my face was slipping and sliding. My makeup was in place the way I had it from that morning. So I was definitely in awe. It's also a 30 milliliter foundation bottle as well, and it retails at $60 Canadian and $48 American. So that's really not that bad, especially if the foundation says what it's supposed to do and you're getting a really good flawless finish from it. I don't mind spending a little bit more money on a foundation that is going to work for my face. So I really don't find that to be that bad. A little bit does go a long way. But again, if you're somebody that likes to have a really full-on coverage, it may not last as long as somebody that just wants a medium coverage. So just keep that in mind when you do go and purchase this product. I believe like a lot of foundations are around the same milliliter. So I'm really happy with this one, and I really do like it. So this might be a toss-up between this and the cosmetics that I truly love. But anyways, that is everything that I have to say in this foundation video, and I really hope that you liked it and you found it helpful. And I will see you all in my next video, so take care. Bye.